I just returned from the Canon EOS R launch event and I want to share a few thoughts with you. I had some hands-on time with this camera. This is my early thoughts. And what I'm always most interested in these videos is your questions, your thoughts. They drive my thinking and my testing over the next couple of days as we get more hands-on time with the camera. So make sure you leave those down below, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram, where I'll be posting what we're up to over the next couple of days as we get to test out not only the EOS R, but their new lenses and of course the adapters. So I want this video to be fairly short and quick. That's what short and quick is, right? Really just kind of hit some of the specs, a few things that I noticed that I really love, a few things that I noticed that I don't love. This is a big deal for Canon. I mean, this is their first full-frame mirrorless camera. They've been dabbling in it with the kind of APS-C, the M50, and you know, those have received decent, if maybe a little bit lukewarm reception. Now, full frame with a whole new mounting system. They're really going in it, and they give us a quick history lesson. You know, they were not the first to the market for digital cameras either, and they had a very small market share early on. Now look where they are in the digital market, still doing very, very well. I think that's their point in mirrorless. Sure, they are behind some other pretty big competitors, but they're not about being first. They're about being optically amazing. That wasn't their words. I'm paraphrasing because it's late. And they're in it for the long haul. They also made the point of they're the only kind of company that controls from the lens to the camera to the printers. Nobody else offers all of that. Does that matter? I don't know, but let's hit some specs on the Canon EOS R. It is a 30 megapixel full frame sensor. You've got that new C RAW format and that dual pixel RAW format too, which, does anybody actually use that? It has an EVF, of course, and I found it to be big and bright and beautiful with customizable info inside. Very nice, I like that. Low light focusing down to -6 EV with an f1.2 lens. And right off the bat, they are offering the 50mm, the RF 50mm f1.2. Looks like a beautiful lens. I'll have more hands-on time with these lenses over the next couple of days and really give you some results. It offers the IAF, something the new Nikon Z system does not, but I was not really impressed. Now, again, limited testing tonight in lighting environments that weren't the best, but, well, don't you want your focusing system to work the best in all lighting situations? And just because I was curious, I happen to have my Sony a7R III here with an adapted Canon 24-70 lens on it, and I threw it up and did a quick IAF test, and it locked on pretty quickly and solidly, and I was not seeing that on the Canon side on the IAF. But general autofocus was very fast and snappy, and that dual pixel autofocus, man, it is so smooth. You pair that with that touch screen, works very nicely. That touch screen is also functioning as a touch pad, so that's when you bring it up to your eye, you can maneuver the focus point around on the back. Now, over 5,000 selectable AF points. I never saw all of those points listed out. You know, you just get a little box and you can move it. What I did notice is that you have edge to edge vertically. That focus point will go all the way up to the edge, so you can focus right up there. Horizontally, it stops just before the edge, but really impressive, almost complete full frame coverage. I'd say somewhere above 90%, so that's really impressive. You got your ISO range, 100 to 40,000, extendable on up. I just looked at a couple of JPEGs. They look good, you know. Early test results, we'll come back and talk about that more. Shutter speed max up to 1/8,000th of a second, and of course you've got full 30 seconds and bulb timer, so you can run longer than 30 seconds if you want. That's all good. Flash sync speed is at 1/200th of a second. Some of you had asked about that, and as I said, make sure you leave your questions and comments right down below. Continuous shooting performance, we've got 8 frames per second. Just 5 if you're relying on continuous autofocus. So a pretty significant drop there, and you'll notice that. On the video side of things, you got 4K, maxes out at 30 frames per second. At 1080, you can do 60, so you could slow that down to 30 if you want a little half-speed stuff. And if you want 120 frames per second, you got to drop down to 720. Nothing terribly impressive there. And the bad news, with 4K, you've got a 1.75 crop. So a significant crop. You have no longer that motion JPEG crap. Can we call it crap? Some of you might defend that, but really who? And you've got a better codec system, but it still feels with that kind of 1080, 60 frames, 4K limited at 30. But you know, the price point this is coming in, that seems reasonable and on par with competitors. But you know, what's going to be coming from Sony in the a7S III so soon? Not that I have inside information. The LCD screen, fully articulating, flip out. Of course it's touch. That is something that Canon does so nicely, and that experience continues to be excellent. And I already mentioned that it can function as a touchpad as well. So that all works really good. Just one card slot. Just one. Again, we're talking about a little bit of a lower price point here, so it may be excusable to many of you, but I know some of you, this will be a hot topic and you will argue for pros and cons and whether or not professionals are going to use this, whether or not you've ever had an SD card failed. And well, with the Nikon system and the Z system, when we're talking about one card slot, you do have that kind of additional argument that, well, at least it's XQD, which seems to be more robust than SD. And here we've just got your standard SD. But talking about robustness, this camera is weather sealed and built similar to the 5D Mark IV, minus the mirror. Shutter is rated at 200,000 actuation, so this is a serious camera that's going to last. And we've got some kind of advanced control now. We don't have a joystick on the back for selecting the focus point. Again, I said the touch screen functions as a touchpad if you want that. But we do have this little swipe bar, and it actually has 3 functions built into it. You can tap on the left side, the right side, or you can swipe across. And it is very customizable, and that brings me to a point. I mean, Canon cameras have been somewhat customizable in the past. My feeling is that they give you just about the customization that you need, but not much more than that. And this really takes it to several new levels. Not only do you have customization, whether you're in photo or video mode for many of the buttons, including even the mode button. The mode dial can be multifunction now on the mode button. Well, I shouldn't say the mode dial because the dial changes depending on what mode you're in. There is no mode dial anymore. But you can even change the mode function button and customize it to just about anything you want. So they really have taken the customizability of this camera to the next level. And the lenses, the RF system lenses, of which we have 4 right now, have an additional control ring on them that is also customizable. ISO, exposure compensation, aperture. You have a good number of items that you can assign to that control ring as well, which gives you an additional level of customization. So let's talk a little bit about those lenses. Now, when they first announced this and they were on stage, they were like fully compatible with EF and EFS lenses. That sounded like it didn't even need an adapter, but you've got an adapter. You've actually got 3 adapters to choose from. You've got your standard, it's a small little adapter. Now you also have a standard adapter that adds in a control ring. So those control rings that are offered on the RF lenses, you can use with your existing catalog of EF lenses because the adapter's got it. And then there's a 3rd adapter that allows drop-in filters, circular polarizer or an ND. So that's really focused on your video shooters. That's nice because you're gonna have very small, affordable filters that you can drop in between the lens and the body. It's a pretty good system. So that's all good. There is no in-body image stabilization. You've got your digital during video if you want, but otherwise you're relying on image stabilization in the lenses only. So no IBIS like you have on Sony, no dual IS like you have on Panasonic or Olympus. And we've got a new flexible priority mode. This is FV. I'm still working on this one. It is manual-like, shutter speed-like, but pairing that with that little multifunction swipe bar, you can quickly switch between the modes that you want to change, and the other settings will adjust to keep you happy and keep your exposure where you want. I'm struggling to see it really being different than working in one of the semi-priority modes and already using auto ISO. But I think it's just a mode that specifically allows you to do that and to jump between what settings you want to change. There, that's what it is. If that's confusing, leave me a comment down below and we'll talk a little bit more about it. I mean, let's come back for a second to that fully articulating touch screen. I mean, that paired with something like the 35, or I'm sure they're going to come out with a small pancake soon, I hope. Come on, Canon. I mean, this is going to be a very lovely vlogging setup. That dual pixel AF works so nicely. You don't necessarily need IAF to work for that, and that's going to be good. So, that's a bit of information about the EOS R mirrorless full frame camera. Real quick, those bad points that I'm not so happy with. I'm not so happy with them. You argue about them in the comments. Be nice to each other. That one card slot, that IAF really seemed to struggle a bit. But overall, autofocus seemed decent. There is no built-in intervalometer, but there is built-in time-lapse movie mode. That's where it will do the interval pictures, but then output a video. No options to output just stills unless you hook in an external remote control. You know, they stressed that this is not a replacement. This is not replacing the DSLR. This is meant to be a complement. You're going to buy this. You're going to be able to use all of your existing lenses with the adapters. I'll put a little list of links with the prices down below, but the main body is coming in at $22.99. It will be available in October. And if you want to buy it with a new RF 24-105, that's available also in October for $33.99. Again, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave those in comments right down below. I got links to the pre-orders. Pre-orders don't actually open until September 12th, but those links are right down below this video. And as I said, leave a comments. What questions do you have about this camera that you want to see answered in the next couple of days? And how do you feel about those pros and cons? What is a deal breaker for you? How excited are you? I know there are a lot of Canon photographers out there that have been waiting for a mirrorless camera. Is this the one you're waiting for? Or are you going to be waiting a little bit longer for version 2? Or I suspect we'll see a more pro-level version within the next year of this camera. I said everything I need to say. Follow me on Instagram, see what we're up to over the next couple of days. Leave your comments and questions right down below. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.